Hi, it's Kamon Reynolds, and let's get started on our next part in our package versus nuke challenge. So we've got a lot going on right now. It is spring, the huge oak trees are putting out pollen, certain varieties of maples are putting pollen, we've got dandelions, henbit, dead nettle, we've got snowflowers, we've got wild mustard, we've got so much. I've even seen a couple blossoms of clover coming up, so things are fixing to get really busy. But just because there's all of those resources coming in does not mean you can just walk away from these things and let them take care of themselves. These things are like a baby calf of the beekeeping world, and while they are bringing in a pretty decent bit of pollen, when it comes to the sugar side of things, the energy side of things, there is not enough right now. And you also have to consider our double and triple deep colonies, they have more foragers than are in this hive altogether. So they have so much gathering power, and we're still not seeing a whole lot of nectar coming in, just enough to really sustain the colonies, not enough for them to sock away and actually put up surplus. So we've got a couple things to cover. One thing, don't do this right here. It is amazing, even in these 70-degree temperatures, how quickly the wax that you roll on there or that comes from the manufacturer will melt off and go down into the cells, and it has no use down in there. The bees there's no benefit to having wax down in the actual cell itself. You just want it on the edges, and that's why in our other video when we just roll it on lightly, we save a lot of beeswax doing that. If you use a brush or something like that, or dip your foundations in there, you just waste a lot of wax. And we have updates on that. We're going to try to get to that, especially this winter. But Laura was able to do like 250 sheets an hour, and I almost was able to do that. And then it was like a pound of beeswax ended up doing closer to 45 of these sheets. So let's put this in the shade a little bit, and it goes the same for your combs. Don't leave them in the sun like that, or just within a little bit you can ruin a comb. And combs are so valuable, especially to a young colony like this, and that's why we're going to be feeding these things today. All right, it was really going to take too long to do all of the counting on these things. So you can see there's a lot of debris, an expired bee there. Okay, so we have, I don't know what the lighting's like, we have bee bread right here. We have white, yellow types, well not bee bread, pollen baskets. It's going to be turned into bee bread. You might be able to see these little white flakes here. Those are wax scales that they were probably fixing to turn into comb, and bees, just like humans, accidentally drop stuff, and it dropped right through the screen onto the sticky board. And you can see all this debris. A lot of this is from the comb that we put into each one of these, where they're just cleaning them out. All right, let's see if we can find some varroa mites here. There's one right there. There's one there. There's a lot in the debris. There's one there. And this is the one that I counted 22 on. There's one up there. There's a few right in here. And we're not going to take this whole video just to show you every single one. I'll give you all the totals. I'm sure there's a couple more than the last time I counted. One thing you can do to make it a little easier to put them in and out is you can take a piece of duct tape and just tape it right here on both sides and create like a tab so it's easier to pull in and out. I'm going to do that before too long. But overall, I was really impressed with these Wilbanks packages on how low of mite counts that they had. They all averaged, from my first inspection, they averaged a little under 20. So that was really nice. Might be a little bit higher now, but overall, that's not too bad of a mite count. But one thing that you've got to consider is those mites reproduce extremely fast. And 100 mites in my area can, in a ideal situation, turn into over 10,000 no problem by the end of the year. It's the most underrated problem in beekeeping, and if you treat late in the year, it's too late, or if you only treat once in the year and you knock them back, it still might not be enough because they can still grow so fast. So enough about the varroa mites. We will talk about those later, and mite math, which is some scary math, but it is important to successful beekeeping. All right, let's crack these things open. Now you can use smoke at any time. Right now, especially since the queens are laying, they can take it much better. I'm not going to use it, but it wouldn't be any problem with using a little bit of smoke and just kind of running it just gently over the tops of the frames. Don't do like a lot of those guys will tell you and just stick it in the entrance and shove a lot of smoke in there. It makes it hard to find the queen. It really disturbs the bees. And it's not necessary, especially on a colony this size. Watch me get stung now that I've said that. Alright. Look at that beautiful white wax. And they've got a little bit of feed down in here. This colony needs more feed. They need that extra surplus energy to keep drawing out the wax. They will not build wax unless they have excess. Alright, just lean that over here. The queen was not on that frame, I don't think. I didn't see her. Especially in a colony like this, they're pretty easy to find. Excuse me. Alright, so this has gotten a little darker already. There she is down right there. And she is laying away. I don't know if you, can you see those eggs down in there? That didn't do much good. But you can see bee bread up in here where they're packing it in. They pack it in with their heads, by the way. They shuck it off and then they ram it with their heads. But yeah, there's a bunch of eggs down in there. I'll stick that one back down. Whew. About pinch that one. See how the bees don't like that banging sound though, and how they quickly run over to investigate? Those guard bees were not thrilled. Alright, more stores over here on the right. And this is what you need to see. As part of learning how to feed your bees correctly, we need to at all times see when the bees are brooding, nectar or capped honey. If you're seeing capped honey though in the package this size, you need to back off your feeding, because they're not going to cap it unless they have plenty of excess. And you definitely don't want to see a bunch of nectar and stuff down here in the middle. The queen needs to be able to lay, so ideally you want to see something like this much brood. You want to see a certain degree of bee bread in here, and then you want to see honey up here. If you start getting too much nectar or sugar syrup or whatever in the center of your frames, you need to back off quick, because you're losing bees really, and then also it can cause enough congestion to eventually make them swarm. A colony like this would be very reluctant to swarm still, but they will do it. Alright, so they're doing a good job on this edge frame too. They're starting to draw this side. And we don't have any eggs on this side, and no young larvae. So what we're going to do is swap this frame around, because it's just foodstuffs on that side, and that way they can focus drawing this side. And we're definitely going to need to feed these things a little bit. I'll show you how I do that with our nifty little feeding can, if you haven't already seen our videos on how to use that. So this concludes our inspection right here. You don't really have to get intensive, and it's better if you don't. Alright, so this one, they've drawn this side out pretty decent. I'm going to go ahead and leave it the way that it was. And I just about got stung pinching a bee in too big of a hurry. Alright, now this is the one I didn't put all 9 frames in with the feeder. Scoot these over. With the feeder you don't quite have bee space, because it just takes up, it's wider than a frame, takes up a little bit more room. Alright, so here's our Gerber Fisker feeding can, which we use for just a little bit of spot feeding. I really prefer a faster method, but we'll show you that later. Alrighty then. So I'm going to put this about 1/3 full. And check this out over here. So we've got these bees that have crawled back up onto these floats. They're drinking it up. A lot of times they won't even stop what they're doing down in the feeder. I've seen them be on the bottom while you're feeding, and after they filled their honey tank, they will let go of the bottom and float to the top and then walk up the sides. Now again, you are occasionally going to see some drowned bees, and there is one in there that I see, and I'm pretty sure that came out of the can, because one of the problems with these cans is if you don't clean them out really good, that you're going to have forager bees go in them, and sometimes they'll die inside the can. So it's best when you're done with the can to rinse it out with water, and so that it won't entice the bees so much, but still sometimes they still go in there. But remember, there are a lot of bees that die every day, and a lot of people aren't going to like this because they freak out if one bee dies. If that's the case, you need to be freaking out a lot, because bees die quite a bit. It is unfortunate. However, bees are going to either expire out in this grass when they get old, they're going to run out there and a spider's going to eat them, they're going to die of exposure, of chill, of heat, of a bird. I know a lot of our birds that are house wrens and other type of birds, they're always around the front of the entrances, and I don't know exactly what they're going for, but I imagine that it's probably some of the dead bees as they expire. Anyways, so this one's looking really good. But you're going to have some that get down in there and they're on their last leg, but the bees are trying to do everything that they can. They work themselves to death. That's what happens. They work themselves to death. And so if they get down in that feeder and they're just old and they're tired and they fall in, they might just not have enough life left to be able to pull themselves out. But a healthy bee will get out of that every time. All right. Come on, get down in there. See, this is where a smoker comes in handy, because then you can push the bees down and you can avoid crushing bees better. But keep in mind, if you have huge hives like that have 5 deep boxes of bees, it is going to be borderline impossible not to ever crush a bee. And we're going to talk about that in another video, because it's just part of beekeeping. We don't do it on purpose. Bees are not really individuals. It is a hive mind. So you got to look at it like bees are cells. We don't want to kill cells, but at the same time it does happen sometimes. And the beekeeper that is knowledgeable and a good caretaker is going to produce a whole lot more bees than he or she is going to kill. Alright, so this one right here, that's looking pretty good. Lots of sugar syrup down in there. Got this side drawn. There wasn't any brood or anything on that side, so I'm going to flip that around. Excuse me. Alright, let's make sure this one's laying as well. Alright. Yep, a bunch of good eggs down in there. Alright, see those eggs? Maybe you can. But that's what they look like. And that's why black foundation makes things a lot easier, is due to the fact that it gives you such contrast between the white egg and the black foundation. Makes it very easy when you're grafting and raising queens. Alright, wow, that looks really good right there as well. I'm taking longer than I normally would. Honestly, I would look to see eggs. I might flip a comb or two just to kind of help them draw it out a little bit quicker and more evenly, and then I would shut this thing after I fed it, and that would be it. Oops, excuse me, sorry. Alright, well, they've done a really good job on this wall side, which bees don't draw towards the edge near as well as they do towards the center because they need the heat. They have a lot of drones over here. For those of you who don't know what a drone looks like, and this is a bunch of drones right here. Just look at all these drones. And they're really underrated. They're really important for reproduction of colonies, genetic diversity, but they also help keep the brood warm. They do eat a lot of food, but they do help with a few chores around the hive. They're not as lazy as we've been told, but you know, they are not as important as a worker bee, that is for sure. Okay, there's the queen up here. She's hiding down in there. Oh, sorry. So we're going to flip this one around as well.